Hello, and good afternoon. A very warm, lovely afternoon to you all. And thank you all for watching and joining me, Mr. Dilly, for another action-packed, full of guests, lots of fun, Mr. Dilly Meets. Joy to have you with us, as always, this afternoon. Before we speak to all our guests individually, there's a thing that you'll know that we usually like to do here on Mr. Dilly Meets, not all the time, but sometimes, called Just a Minute, where each of the authors who have spent months writing these books get to distill the whole of the book into 1 minute. And we're going to do it a little bit different today. We're going to do it in a sort of a tag version. So all the authors are going to be on screen at once, and we're going to give them a minute, and kind of as soon as 1 minute ends, the next one's got to pick it up. So no pressure at all. So let's welcome all my guests. Here we go. Nansu. Hello, Nansu. Nice to meet you. Okay. Chitra.
How are you?
We have Tom. We have Lorraine. And we have Yasmine as well. Give everyone a big wave, and I will give you an enormous round of applause. Fantastic stuff. Thank you very much for joining me today. This is going to be a lot of fun. So before we get to speak to you all individually as we go on in the show, just a minute. Any quick questions about Just a Minute before we begin it? Are you all terrified? You just put a thumbs up. First of all, and encourage each other. So first of all, Nansu, can we have a big round of applause, please? Nansu, who's going to begin. Come on, Nansu, I believe in you. So I'll give you a 3, 2, 1. And then I cut the timer, and off you go. Okay, so do you want to need stretching or limbering up, or you can go straight in? I'll give you a 3, 2, 1. Ready? Here we go. Come on, Nansu. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so this is my book, Girl on the Fly. It is set in the city of Philadelphia in the US in 1992, and it follows 13-year-old Kamaria Kessie, who is dealing with a lot of change. First, it's the end of the track season, and the last chance for her relay team to win the state championship before one of her teammates moves away. Secondly, she's had a falling out with her best friend, Odie, and she's not sure how to fix it. And on top of all of this, her parents have just informed her at the very last minute that an aunt she's never met before is about to move into her room, no less. And so the book follows Cam as she deals with all of this uncertainty and chaos and comes up against some really important questions like, is winning everything? What does it mean to find your own rhythm? And how do you stay connected to the people that you care about when everything feels out of control? Along the way, there are a lot of jokes, 90s musical references, a sprinkling of life wisdom.
Look at that. That was very, very good, actually. I think that was, I think we're all quite.
I was nearly done.
That was very, very good, actually. That was very, very good. I think you set quite a high bar there. So, Chitra, are we ready then? Ready? So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh, I'll do 30 seconds. We can do 30 seconds, then 30 seconds to Yasmine. So I'll 30 seconds upload the thing, then straight to you, Yasmine. Okay. No pressure. Okay, here we go. So ready? 3, 2, 1. Off you go.
Okay, Yara's Chance to Dance is the first book in the Ballet Besties series. In this book, we follow Yara as the main character, and as she juggles her schoolwork, and she's the lead in the Sleeping Beauty in Shimmer and Shine studio, and she really wants to do well, but they find out that their ballet class, the building, is going to get shut down and get evicted, and she needs to do something about it. And can she do it with all her friends?
Look at that. That was beautifully done, but you're going to pick up now. Yasmine, straight to you. Off you go.
Okay, so Yara starts falling behind with her schoolwork, and all of her friends together, the 5 of them, they all help Yara catch up with her schoolwork so that she can take part in the ballet performance. And they want to prove to Dame Clogson Wilmot, who is the scary, mean house sort of landlord of the ballet school, to prove to her that they need to keep the ballet school open because it brings them so much joy and happiness.
Look at that. That was very, very well done. I mean, I'm very, very impressed. Very, very impressed. Okay, Lorraine, here we go. Come on, Lorraine. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Off you go.
Okay, so my series, Interdimensional Explorers, features Danny, who's the main character. He lives on a council estate, and he thinks nothing exciting ever happens there until one day he falls through the locker in his granddad's garage and discovers that his granddad has secretly been running an interdimensional lost property office. And now Danny, his best mate Modge, and his annoying cousin Inaya have to run the lost property office while his granddad's ill, and they have to return the lost property to all the different dimensions where it's fallen through from. And also, of course, they have to save the world and the entire multiverse, not just our world, all the worlds. They have to save it all. And in book 2 when alien apocalypse, they have to do even more saving of the multiverse, and they have to find the bad guys, discover the plot, and do all these amazing things before they get back. But they do spend quite a lot of time arguing, bickering, and
again, very good. You are all very, very good at this. I mean, you must have been practicing. This is exceptional. To be honest, exceptional. I had an author one. It was last year. I think he was on a book tour, and he was exhausted. He was in a hotel room, and he did it, and it made about 20 seconds. Then so I can't remember the rest of my book. I know it happens. Okay, Tom, it's up to you now, sir. Okay, so let's get that 1 minute on the timer. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Over to you.
Good. Right. I'm regretting not planning this, but it's How to Stop the End of the World. There we go. And it's a book about preventing the apocalypse. Start the summer holidays. Cole, the main character, his parents are very sporty. He's not very sporty. They force him to enter some family relay run. It all goes terribly wrong, as relay runs often do. And on the way back, he finds some strange chalk markings on the pavement. He investigates these. That leads him to meeting the other main character, Lucy, and then he gets involved in a plot to recover a sword, an ancient curse, and saving the world. And it's all set where I live in Kent. What else? Beards, fake beards, car chases, explosions. There's a castle gets set on fire, and lots of fun. And yeah,
that was very, very. But it's kind of weird, isn't it? It's a bit like, when people are in a quiz and you think, I know this answer, and your brain just goes completely blank. It's one of those kind of moments. But listen, I think you should all give each other a big round of applause for that. You all did it very, very well. Fantastic. It's just me and you now, sir. Though that was excellent. Thank you very much. So how's things all going?
It's all good. I was stuck a bit then for talking for a minute, which was slightly worrying. But otherwise, yeah, it's all good.
I must say, Tom, I've been laughing a lot at your social media posts, which always make me laugh, and I show them frequently to my wife, who finds them very amusing as well. So thank you for that, for being a bit of joy into my world. It's very, very good. How did you end up kind of getting to do what you do now? I'll hand over for you to sort of give us a sort of a brief rundown of that, if I may.
Well, it's like slightly a pat answer, but I guess it's good for some kids listening who enjoy English. I really enjoyed English. I think the three things I enjoyed at school were English, football, and mucking about, really. And so I think now I've reached, my 40s, I'm able to muck about and write books, which is good. But at school, lots of encouraging teachers. I always did quite well at English, not very well at other subjects. What did I do at university? Well, I wanted to do English, carried on writing, carried on reading. And I think the more you read and the more you write, eventually you get to a point where you think, well, maybe I should show this to somebody. And that's what I did. And I guess second to that as well is that I'm an English teacher. And so you read a lot of kids' literature there as well. And you think to yourself, well, why not give it a go myself? Why not try and write something funny? If you're working with kids all day. And so that's what I did. I also got 2 young boys, and, I try and stop them fighting occasionally by perhaps asking them about stories or trying to force them to read some of my stuff, which isn't always successful.
But I was actually, the question I was going to ask you actually was have you managed to get, being a teacher in a school and obviously having 2 young boys, have you got a lot of sort of ideas or inspiration from seeing how those children behave, or how they could behave possibly, and stuff like that?
Yeah. Because kids are funny. I mean, that's why it's fun being a teacher, because kids do silly things. They live in the moment. They don't think about repercussions, and therefore they make silly decisions, but funny decisions as well. So you see silly things happening all the time. I remember one of the funniest things recently, I was directing a school play, and a boy was very, very worried about going on stage and talking. And I said, don't worry about it. What's the worst thing that can happen? And he wanders out onto stage, his trousers fall down, which I think was probably literally the worst thing that could have happened.
That's almost a comedy film, isn't it? I think it's like...
Exactly, yeah.
No, that's incredible.
Stuff like that happens all the time. So you think
yeah. Well, your book. So Cole, the main character in your book, I know you mentioned him in your just a minute there. tell us a bit more about him, because I a couple of things with Cole I had a great affinity with, which I explain to you in a minute. But tell us a bit more about Cole and the situation he finds himself in, sort of in the book, and how that sort of progresses a bit. So I'll hand over to you for that.
Well, I suppose I think Cole is inspired by me, really. My dad, I don't know if anyone out there listening experiences this as well, but my dad and my mum both were very sporty. My sister's really sporty as well, and played different games, teams for the county. I'm just rubbish. I like football, but I'm not very good at football. And so, you know, you're living constantly with your parents clearly being disappointed with you, however well you do in other things. You know, you're not in the first team, you're not scoring goals. Parents are disappointed because that's what they did when they were your age. And I think that's just an interesting dynamic with, you know, parents trying to live their lives through you to some degree, and perhaps them being slightly disappointed with you. And so Cole is the least sporty boy imaginable, but with two parents that are just mad for jogging in particular. I just thought that kind of dynamic can be quite funny. Not
it is. In fact, then I've got a great affinity with yourself and with Cole. My parents weren't massively sporty, but my sporting career was fairly limited at school. So I had a, you know, with Cole, when I started reading it, I thought, I wonder if Tom has experienced this as well, because this is quite a close thing.
Well, I think I'm more tragic than Cole, because I like football, but I'm not good at it. I mean, Cole just doesn't like sports.
Just doesn't like it.
That's the most tragic.
It's a wonderful. The writing comedy. I mean, there's a lot of, obviously, all sorts of different styles of books, all sorts of different styles of films and series and stuff. But generally, I don't know what you think about this. Is probably just a personal thing that I think. There's a lot more sort of sad and depressing stuff than there is kind of funny and light stuff in the same way. Do you think that could be because writing comedy and performing comedies is sometimes a lot harder to do? Do you think, or would you agree with that? Or not?
I mean, obviously, I write funny books, so I would say it's the most.
Yes, absolutely, I would agree.
But I guess it's a binary, isn't it? Either someone finds it funny or they don't. Do you get that reaction from them? And so someone read your book and just say, "Well, I don't think this is funny." You know, it's flopped. Whereas books that are less reliant on humor, I guess, don't have that kind of instant reaction to it. It's the same with people in the playground. You tell them a joke, they laugh or they don't laugh, and it's funny or not. So to that degree, I think yes. But then you've got to think to yourself, if I find it funny, then fine. If there'll probably be a couple of other people out there that have a similar sense of humor. So just don't worry about making everyone laugh. I guess.
Otherwise you'd never do anything. Could you? I've got a couple of questions more for you, and then we've got a couple of score questions sent in for you as well. Could you give us a little reading from the book that kind of highlights, gives us a feel of you know, what's going on in the book and the story? Because it's a great title as well. How to Stop the End of the World. It's really
I feel slightly bad because I was talking about it at a scholl and someone put their hand up and went, "Oh, is it about climate change?" And I had to say, "No, it's
I'm afraid not." I'll hand over to you for a reading here, Tom. Here we go. This is Tom reading from How to Stop the End of the World. Here we go.
So this is a bit of a car chase, actually. So I won't ruin how they've got in the car chase or what's led up to this. But just it gives you a flavor of the book, I think. The first sign that something was up was all the cars stopping at the side of the road. And when they turned to look, Lucy and Cole saw a fire engine. Stones began indicating left, that's the dad driving, mirroring the traffic in front and behind that was pulling over, until, that is, Lucy knocked his hand away and shouted, "What are you doing?" Because it wasn't just any fire engine, or more precisely, it wasn't just any fire engine driver. It was Ross. Ross is the bad guy. And he became more obviously Ross the closer and closer the fire engine sped. "Go faster," said Lucy, flapping her hands to indicate the open road that lay ahead, cleared by all the drivers who'd thought this to be a genuine emergency. Stones changed up a gear. I'm trying, he muttered, as the little Honda's engine didn't so much roar as meow. Cole's focus was fixed through the rear window, and it was then that he realized that the screaming sound he could hear didn't come from the fire engine, and neither did the lightning strikes of blue lights. There was a police car behind Ross. However, he'd managed to escape the officers. He hadn't succeeded in losing them. "Dad," said Lucy, but there wasn't much that the man could do. The speedometer trembled from 60 to 70 miles per hour, but did so as if fighting against gravity, and as if weighed down with stones, which, when you think about it, it was. The characters are called stones. And the fire engine really was right behind them now, and Cole could very clearly see Ross's face. It was as red as the vehicle's paint. He gripped the huge steering wheel with such anger that Cole wouldn't have been surprised to see him pull the thing off and hurl it through the rectangular windscreen like a deadly frisbee. Instead, teeth bared like a wolf, he continued urging the fire engine ever closer to the Honda's back bumper. "He's going to hit us," said Cole, and almost as soon as the words had left his mouth, the cliff face of the red cab nudged against the car. Stones made a sound that wasn't particularly reassuring, his steering wheel shaking this way and that under his hands. And I'll stop there. If you want to know whether they are successful in escaping this evil fire engine, you'll have to buy the book.
It did make me laugh out loud a lot. Actually, we've got a question actually from a school just about that actually, Tom, as well, which is
wow.
the Little Thurrock Primary School, Essex. Did you laugh a lot when writing your book? I mean, you kind of said that earlier, really, but I mean,
yeah.
Do you find, I mean, these kind of things coming to you as you're doing it, or did you laugh?
I think of funny things, yeah. I mean, I don't want to sound self-indulgent and think I'm sitting there going, "Oh yeah, that's brilliant." Yeah, that's not quite right. Because you second guess yourself, but it is fun thinking up silly scenarios, yeah, and having a chuckle about it. Like, can I get a fire engine chase in there? Yeah, I'll do that. So yes,
I think that must be great fun. Just thinking, because that's something you can let your imagination run riot, really, can't you? Within
that's the fun with writing, for everyone, primary school and published authors. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, we've got another question for you. Richmond Avenue Primary and Nursery School, South End. How do you keep the writing spark alive and think of new, exciting ideas? Which I thought was quite a good question.
That's quite a question. Yeah, meditation, going for a jog. I don't know. Just you've got to just be observant. That'd be my advice to everyone. Just keeping your eye open for funny things and stories that interest you in the news, and keeping an open mind. And then eventually you'll think, "Oh, that might be a good idea for a story," and then it starts. I think so. Just keeping your ears open.
Look around. Did you just onto that? Do you do you keep like a little notebook or anything? Do you write down these ideas?
I've got Google Keep. So yeah, on my phone, something funny happens or there's a news story, I write it down because you never know when you might want to use it.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Tom, we're going to speak to you again later on. How to Stop the End of the World is it out right now? Is it coming out?
Right now, yeah.
It's out right now. How to Stop the End of the World is out right now. So do get yourself a copy. It's very, very funny, but fantastic book. Tom, we have you on again later on in our author panel. But for now, round of applause. Thank you very much. Mr. Tom Mitchell, please. Thank you very much, Tom. Please welcome to Mr. Dilly Meets the lovely CHITRA SOUNDAR and YASMINE NAGHDI. Hello, both.
Hello.
Nice to have you on. It's an interesting thing. Obviously, you're both working together on this book. So CHITRA, how did you sort of get from here to doing what you do, really?
I actually grew up with lots of oral storytelling. So I was more into oral storytelling because literally everybody in our family did that. And I was telling stories quite a lot. And my mum is a playwright, and we used to go up on stage and act out her plays. And that's kind of how I developed. But I was always writing right from when I was 6. And like Tom said, my favorite subject was English, but I used my writing in everything. I was the one who would jump up to write an essay, and my friends used to hate me for that. I was really good at spellings. So for me, it was always, there's one thing I could do, and I was so bad at sports, just like, you both said. I was so bad at sports. My mom used to play quite a lot, but I absolutely don't play any sports. And so I've been writing ever since.
So YASMINE, you have a very different background, and obviously, given what you do, probably a little bit more sporty than me, Tom, or CHITRA. But for those who don't know about yourself, YASMINE, I hand over to you to tell us a little bit about that. So YASMINE, off you go.
Perfect. Well, my background is very different. I did start out just like everyone else at school. I loved sports, and I could say I was quite good at sports. I was very competitive. I loved always kind of, winning the race and our team always winning. So there was definitely that sporty streak very young. But I also loved English and history. They were my favorite subject at school, and languages as well. And I am actually a ballerina. I am a principal dancer with the Royal Ballet at the Royal Opera House. So my home is in Covent Garden, the beautiful Opera House, and I perform here. We do around 150 performances a year, around 12 different productions. We have beautiful repertoire, beautiful ballets from Nutcracker, Swan Lake, Sleeping Beauty, a lot of these favorites, Romeo and Juliet, Winter's Tale. So we've got a lot of good ballets coming up as well. And I really wanted children to find love for dance, whether it's at school, whether it's outside of school. It doesn't have to be ballet necessarily, but dance can bring so much joy to people and allow such an escape. And
it is. We're actually that what you're just saying. If you hold that thought, I'll bring Chitra in, and we just expand on that in a bit later on, because that's one of the things about your book is how it presents. Let's get Chitra back on. How it presents dance as well. You know, because you know things like ballet. I don't know if this is just my sort of. I mean, I've seen the ballets. I love it, but it can be seen as sort of like a bit of an exclusive thing in a sense, ballet. But what your book shows is that this sort of very sort of inclusive kind of world. Before we get to that, how did you get to work together and get started on Ballet Besties? Who wants to start with that one?
Well, I think it was during COVID, isn't it? So Yasmin reached out. Do you want to tell this story, or do you want me to?
Yeah. So I researched children's book writers, and I came across Chitra and saw all these amazing stories that she had written. And I really wanted this book to be really inclusive and for children all around the world to be represented, not just one or two, but really try and bring in as many as possible. And I loved Chitra's background and her being an Indian right storyteller. And I really loved having that sort of combination. So I reached out to her. She told her literary agent, was like, I don't know if this is who this is. And her literary agent is a ballet fan. And she went quite crazy to go, oh my God, I can't believe she's reached out. And I think it's.
So how did you, so you obviously went along and said, we want to do these books to the publisher, and this is the first of a trilogy. Am I right in thinking that's the first of a trilogy?
If we're going to be doing 4 books. Yeah, so when she reached out, with my agent, literally when I called my agent to say this is happening, she half typed an email and I got like a response, and then she came back and said, sorry, I dropped my phone in excitement. I love Yasmin. So then we sat together, discussed whether we should be picture books or chapter books, and how do you reach more inclusive audiences who are willing to do this. And because ballet needs to be learned from a certain age, introducing these complex stories is much harder in picture books. So just for that, we decided we'll be writing chapter books, and we wanted to follow each of the stories in each of the people in the group.
Tell us about so Yara as a character. I mean, is that Yasmin? I mean, obviously the dance through it. I mean, is that any based on your experiences or anything to do with you as a young girl, Yara as a character, or is that just completely kind of just sort of out of the blue?
Yes, definitely. I think Yara is not exactly my story, but is modeled on my story a little bit. So there's a little piece of me in there as well, and we've got Indu, who is, a little bit of Chitra's character in there as well. So we brought in a little bit of both of us into our characters.
So this is Chitra. You're going to give us a little taster of Ballet Besties over here. So I hand over to you, Chitra, for this.
Great. Ballet Besties, Yara's Chance to Dance, Chapter 1. There's all the things are there. Yara woke up that morning before her alarm went off. She was just too excited to sleep. It was finally Tuesday, the best Tuesday of her entire life, because that afternoon, Yara would be going to a proper ballet class in a proper studio with a proper real-life ballet teacher. The first thing Yara did after getting out of bed was check and double-check her new ballet bag. 3 leotards and a wraparound skirt, 3 pairs of ballet tights, hair accessories, a hair donut, a pack of hairnets, hairpins, and hairbands. Pair of soft ballet flats, pair of knitted leg warmers, padlock and key for the locker room. Check, check, check. Normally, Yara wouldn't have bought a new ballet kit, but this new place was special. After years of learning by herself, she would finally be part of a class and perform with other dancers. Also, that summer, Yara had grown a bit taller and her old kit didn't fit well, so it was time for a fresh kit for a fresh start. Last month, Yara had moved with her family to this town from another country. Before that, they'd moved home and country multiple times, following her papa's job wherever it took him. He was an eco-engineer who worked with factories all around the world to make them less polluting. Yara didn't mind the moving around. She got to see so many new places. But it did mean she'd never been able to join a ballet school before. This time, however, Papa was going to work here permanently and they could settle down at last. It'll be good for your studies, said Mama, when Papa had shared the news that this move would be the last one for us to be based in one place. And ballet, Yara had replied, I can finally go to a proper ballet school where I can actually stay long enough to become a professional dancer. Papa laughed. School and ballet, Yara, he said, in that order. But Yara started to object. We'll make a deal with you, Yara, Mama said, putting an arm around her. We'll find you a good ballet school, but you must promise to focus on school and keep your grades up. Yara loved ballet more than anything else in the world. When she was 4, Mama had enrolled her in a gymnastics class, but Yara had opened the wrong door in the studio and stood enthralled watching a ballet class in progress. She wanted to dance like them. She begged Mama to move her into that class, even if it only for the short time they were living there, and had never stopped dancing since. When they moved to cities where there were no ballet teachers near them, they'd find someone to teach Yara online. But it wasn't the same. Each teacher had taught her in different ways, and Yara longed for consistency. The worst part of not learning in a proper ballet school, though, was that it was lonely. There was no one to enjoy practice with or make friends with. The online classes were good for learning, and she could do them anywhere, but they could never replace the feeling of dancing with a group in an actual studio. But all that was going to change now.
Dun, dun, dun. Let's welcome my next guest, the wonderful Lorraine Gregory, complete with flashing antennae. There we go. How are you, Lorraine?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really, really good. Lovely to have you on. Came to it. What was your sort of journey from school and then getting into doing what you were doing? I'll hand over to you to answer that, if that's okay.
Okay, so I was a huge reader. I loved reading all through my childhood. I grew up on a council estate, so we didn't have much money for books, but my mum took us to the library every week, and I would get my books and I would just fly through them. I just read and read and read, and then that led to me writing stories. I was always writing really long stories that my teachers then had to read. And my dream was to be an author. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to write books. I wanted other people to get inside my mind because I loved books so much, and I loved that feeling of seeing these other worlds and these other places and these other lives, and I wanted to do that for other people. So I wrote loads and loads of stories. I loved English at school, but it was a bit too much for me. You didn't get much chance to do much free writing when you got to secondary school. So I got my own typewriter. I used to write at home. I loved it.
Now that's amazing. So, were you one of the things you actually talk about, actually, and this is actually to do with it says, I think it's in your website, as part of your school assembly, you talk about the one thing that makes every story unique is the author and what they bring to it, which is good advice for all of us. How so you kind of touched on that, how you've done that, but how can others do that as well? And it kind of echoes some sort of Tom mentioned sort of about how he sort of what he did it. Is it the same sort of advice in terms of how people can start stories and get into it? Maybe they weren't at school or aren't very good at the currently yet, or don't think they're very good at writing or not big readers. What could you do that could encourage them in that sense, you think?
I think it's mainly just finding that spark, that thing that interests you, that thing that makes you excited. What do you want to find out more about? What do you want to, what story would you love to read? And then try and write that, I think. And I think it doesn't really matter to be perfect in, I think people think you have to just be perfect and really good at writing, but even published writers, we're writing like over and over again to make it better and better and better. And so it's all practice.
To just start. It's a good one. So Interdimensional Explorers is a wonderful series. As you said, you mentioned Danny there. Tell us a bit more about Danny in the book and what happens in this particular book. So where do we you sort of mentioned it in your just a minute there, but where do we sort of find him? And without giving too much away, where does it take us, this particular book?
Okay, so now that they've had a bit of experience working at the Interdimensional Lost Property Office, saving the multiverse and generally getting to grips with everything, in the second book, Alien Apocalypse, we have more adventures coming up because Danny is left alone to run the IDLPO while his granddad's gone on a cruise. And so Danny, Modge and I, now they've got to run it, but they've got Returns Day coming up, which is one of the biggest events of the year. So he needs to have some training. And one thing leads to another. It all kind of goes a bit skew if they end up in more adventures, discovering plots, and again, having to save the multiverse from some quite nefarious villains.
Yeah, but it's a really, I love that whole idea, the interdimensional Lost Property Office. I mean, that is so, I mean, I think that they've got all my socks, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I mean. It's always socks, pens, keys, the whole sort of thing. Were you always a big sci-fi fan, you know, growing up, or not? Or was it just kind of a genre you kind of
it's weird because I wasn't like into Doctor Who or anything much like that, but yeah, there were definitely a whole series that I liked and books I read because I got really into fantasy and sci-fi when I was kind of in my late teens, and then I kind of like read, and so I love all of that because I love the idea of different worlds and possibilities and the freedom it gives you as an author of the things you can make up because it's endless, and it
is endless. And I think someone said before, I don't know what author it was, but I mean, there's an incredible freedom with children's books as well, because in a sense, in terms of writing them, you know. And maybe it's for some adults, our imagination kind of can sort of lessen as we get older. Obviously not for you authors, obviously, because otherwise you'd be able to write the books. But with kids, you know, that you know, if you make it believable, they kind of go along with anything and buy into that in the most wonderful way, you know. And you can take them in all sorts of journeys.
That's what I love about the sort of middle grade, sort of 8 to 12 like year group, because they will go along with anything. You know, if you do it well enough, they'll just take it and they'll go, yes, of course. Totally be real, and they'll just engage, and it's just really brilliant.
Well, it does come across in the book. It's a really fun. Give us an idea. You've got a little reading for us. You give us of the book, just to give us an idea of the sort of you know, the interdimensional properties of your book. Okay, that's pretty good. So I'll hand over to you for a little reading for us, and we've got a couple of questions from schools for you, Lorraine. After that, if that's okay. So this is Lorraine with a little reading from the second in the Interdimensional Explorers. Here we go.
Okay, so the reading I'm going to do for you now is they've got to another dimension. Things have gone awry, as they usually do, and now they found themselves trapped in the quagmire, which is full of monsters. So a little bit of a reading for you. Really don't want to get eaten, Modge says. Well, maybe you shouldn't have been so desperate for stupid gifts then, Inaya snaps. And maybe you should just shut up having a go at everyone, little Miss Perfect. It's not our fault that Larrabee 3 is proper mental, Modge bellows. The bellow that comes back is much louder and deeper and disturbingly close. Oh, great, Inaya whispers. Shh, I hiss, but it's too late. The monster has found us. The light wavers as Inaya's hand shakes, but I can see enough to make my belly cramp up. It's huge for a start, a great big hulking beast with spiky grey fur, a long tail and malevolent green eyes. If you could cross a lion with a rat, then that is what it is, only uglier and smellier and way scarier. It bellows again as it approaches, giving me a lovely view of the rows of serrated teeth in its mouth. The beast snorts and slobbers as it gets closer. My legs wobble, but it hardly matters. There's nowhere to run to anyway. We're trapped. This is definitely the end. Hello there, Modge says in his softest voice. Aren't you lovely? My best friend plonks shuggily into my arms and moves past me before I can grab him. Modge, what are you doing? I hiss. It's fine, Danny. I'm just going to make friends with him. He keeps walking, his hands out in front of him. Are you mad? It's a monster. Maybe he's just lonely. Maybe he needs a hug. Oh, God, I really don't want to watch my best mate get his face eaten just because he's a soft-hearted idiot. What is he doing? Inaya whispers, gripping my arm. Modge, please, I hiss again, but it's no use. He's getting closer. Who's a good boy? Modge croons. Are you a good boy? Are you? The beast bares its teeth and growls. I don't think it is a good boy at all. Modge is too close now. reaching out his hand. Shugley lets out a cheep of protest because I'm squeezing him too hard. Anaya's fingers pinch my arm, and I think I'm going to be sick. As Modge reaches up to scratch its ears, the beast suddenly rears back with a roar and opens its mouth. Modge! I scream as the beast lunges for his hand, and Anaya drops her phone in a panic, and everything goes dark.
Oh, that was very, very good. Well, also, the flashing lights gave it an extra sense of drama. You know, kind of like being in a sort of strobe disco brave thing. So that's brilliant, really, really good. I've got a couple of questions for you here, Lorraine from school. So this is an interesting one. Chase Grammar Prep School, Cannock. Do you always love your first draft? Which is quite interesting. I know. I mean, that's probably one for all our authors, really. But you know, do you read it and go?
It's guarantee. Yeah, every author. No, they hate their first draft.
Yeah. So, how many? I just spoke to. Who was it? Do you know an author called Tom Palmer? Tom Palmer. I
know of him. Yeah.
Yeah, he said I don't know. He was on his 28th draft or something for some particular book. It's a long time. What's the most you've ever sort of done in terms of drafts? You know, in terms of that. Yeah, I just explain what a draft is first of all. You better explain what
a draft is. Kind of like the first. Well, there are lots of levels of them, but it's just you writing out the story. So the first time round is normally that. Sometimes it's really fun because you've got a story idea and you're like writing it down, but also you know that it's not very good and you're going to have to go back and fix everything. So it can be nice to get it all out in a big blur, but then you know there's so many things that are wrong with it, so many things you've got to fix. And sometimes it's nothing like what you imagined in your head. You have this brilliant idea in your head and then you write the story down and you're like, oh, that's nowhere near it. That's going to need so much work.
Yeah. Does it often end up, I mean, literally, I mean, obviously it changes, but does it sometimes end up completely different from that first draft? I mean, obviously other people's input and stuff, and how does that?
Yeah, so I think possibly the main kind of theme is kind of, you know, story is the same, but a lot can change. I've once, you know, I've thrown away half of my book. You know, I've written a draft and then the second half just completely thrown it away and rewritten it because, you know, you just realise something's better. Sometimes you don't quite know until you're writing it exactly what you want or exactly how it's going to go. So it's a lot of like wrong turns, I guess, sometimes that you have to come back in and sort of weave in and out, and then you get feedback from my editors and everything as well that you have to kind of like.
It's a bit like life, that. I mean, you sort of like you go in this direction like that, you end up over there, and sometimes actually that's a better place to be. But you don't know that until you're heading in that direction. It's sort of a weird thing. Okay, let's have one more question from school for you, Lorraine. Here we go. St. Athan Primary School, Glamorgan. How do you keep the excitement of the story running through to the end of the story? Which is quite a big question, actually.
No, that's a good question. So I love my stories to be really exciting. That's what I'm aiming for all the time. And I think because when I started writing for my son, who was a bit reluctant reading. And I was like, oh, I just need to make it really exciting. So I'm always constantly just trying to move it on, trying to make something funny, something exciting, something interesting happening all the time. So I suppose it's pacing is the important thing. You have to kind of have paces that go up and down. So there's always something interesting, exciting happening, so that to keep the readers turning the pages, that's what I want.
It must be done. That must. I mean, I suppose for any author, I suppose for anybody who's creating anything, whether it's a film or you know, that kind of keeping people going, you know, in the sense of that and giving them a reason to read. That's why characterization, I guess, is so important, isn't it? So you actually care about what's happening to them as they're going through it, all in that sort of sense. Lorraine, I can speak to you all day, but we cannot. So what we're going to do is we're going to say goodbye to Lorraine for now, and Lorraine, you're joining us at the end. For our author panel at the end. But for now, thank you very much. It's Lorraine Gregory with Interdimensional Explorers. Okay, speak to you soon, Lorraine. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, so it's time to welcome my final guest before we bring everyone on back together again. So please welcome to Mr. Dilly Meets. It's Nansu ISDAHL. Hello, Nansu. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Tell everyone where you're actually coming from today. Where are you?
Today, I am in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, which is where I live with my family.
So you're coming a long way away today. So if there's a slight delay in the internet, that'll be because it's coming from a long way away. Now, Nansu, absolute pleasure to meet you and have you on today. So you are here to talk about your debut middle grade novel, Girl. It's a great cover, that, isn't it? Girl on the Fly.
Beautiful cover.
It's beautiful colors. Before we sort of get into that, because I know you've got this is your debut book, but you've got quite an interesting sort of background in sort of things you've worked in and stuff. How did you sort of get into writing this book, you know, for children? with all the stuff you've done before. Can I leave that to you to sort of explain to the children sort of a little bit about that, if that's okay?
Sure.
So I'll hand over to Nandu now.
Sure. So similar to the other authors, I loved English and history in school. I wrote often, a lot of raps, actually, bad raps, bad poetry, but I loved to read and to write. And in university, I studied sociology. Grad school, I studied diplomacy and international relations. And then I've been working in international development for about 20 years now. And that's basically working on education and health projects internationally. And I was doing sort of program management for these programs in several different countries. And then I somehow transitioned to writing about the programs. And so I've been writing actually for the past 10 or 15 years in my day job. And then I had a daughter, and I was interested in a story about Uganda for her, and I couldn't find something that I wanted. So I wrote a picture book, and then from there, I've just continued to write. But it was never an intention to write creatively.
It's just the way things sort of progress. That's what we were just saying to Lorraine there, you know, sort of going down there, and you end up sort of over here, which is the strange thing.
Oh.
So your book, as you said in your just a minute there, a couple of questions I want to quickly ask about it. So first of all, it's set in 1992 in Philadelphia.
It is.
In USA, of course. Well, why then and why there? If I sort of ask you those two things.
Sure. I grew up in the 90s, and so I sort of wanted to set a book in a time that I remembered very fondly. I also very much love 90s music. And so writing and music are very closely linked for me. The tagline of the book, if you can see that, is "Rhythm is everything." So rhythm in this context is running, but music is also sort of just very closely linked to my writing. But I set it in the 90s because I grew up in the 90s, and I had very fond memories of that time. And it's set in Philadelphia because I went to university in Philadelphia, and I just wanted to revisit the
Must
city
have been quite nice to do that, wasn't it? Sort of go back in time and sort of like remember all those places.
Oh, it was great.
About it. It's interesting. It's interesting when there's a lot of bits and bobs coming out now, even on TV, you know, where the stories are set in like the 1980s or the 1990s, the early 1990s. But obviously that's before the internet, before mobile phones in any sort of way. You know, what sort of I suppose what does that kind of give you as a writer? Does it give you more freedom to set it in that time, or is there challenges, you know, setting it sort of before all the technology sort of came in that way? Is it what's it like?
For me, I think, to be honest, it was infinitely easier not to have to deal with cell phones and texting. Yeah. So many of the conversations happened over the phone and in person. And that is how I remember my sort of early years, 10, 11, 12, 13. I was talking to my friends in person or on the phone. And I loved the phone dynamic. So for me, it was quite refreshing, to be honest with you, and probably a bit of a cheat. I'm not very technologically inclined. And so for my first book, I didn't want to have to sort of venture into writing in texts. And
I can imagine. Yeah, I would be the same. So that's all kind of good. So your character, Cam, the main character in the book, she's obviously, as you said, she's got a passion for running relays. Was that something you did, or is it sort of close to your heart in a big way? You sort of mentioned it a bit earlier, but or is that just sort of something you just kind of put in there?
No, big runner. Ran from 5th or 6th grade through college, and I still run now. Actually, I run it almost every day. So I'm a big runner. I was an
that's
athlete.
Something you did know. That's something you did know something about, which is a good thing. So run without the mobile phone, without the cell phone in your hand, which is a great thing.
Yes. Absolutely.
So could you tell us a little about Cam's journey in the book? I know you mentioned it in just a minute. How do we see her evolve as a sort of as a person through her sort of journey and what she wants to do within your story? Can I without sort of giving too much away, can I hand over for you to tell her a bit more about her in the book?
Sure. So Cam loves her friends, she loves her family, she loves running, but she is resistant to change. And so the point at which we meet her in the story, there's a lot of change happening. She is having issues with her best friend. An aunt she's never met before is coming to move to live with them, and it's the last chance for her relay team to win the state championship before one of her friends moves away. And so she feels really sort of off kilter, and she's very fixated on winning. And so the journey that she is on is one in which she has to try to find her center and her grounding internally instead of looking externally for grounding. And so we see her sort of evolve in that sense throughout the course of the book.
It's a beautiful, and I do really love, you know, I love it being set in the 90s as well. It's close to my heart as well, so that's really lovely. I've got a couple of questions for you from school. Should we have a little reading first of all to give her a flavour of the book and of Cam's journey throughout it? Then we come back with a couple of school questions, if that's all right, Nansu, after that. So let's have Nansu now with Girl on the Fly, little taster for you to get a feel of the book set in 1992, before the internet. I know, here we go. So here we go.
So I'm reading from chapter 5, Things That Go Boom. And just to give you a little context, Kamaria is having problems sleeping because she's feeling pressure about the state championship. She just found out that her Aunt Rose is coming to stay with her family and moving into her room, and she's still having problems with her best friend Odie. So here we go. Things were so bad now that when I saw Odie in the hallways at school, he usually turned around and started scrambling in the other direction. Any chance I had to talk to him about how to handle the Aunt Rose situation before she landed on our doorstep was out of the question too. My legs started twitching under the bedsheet. Turns out wishing I could talk to Odie was even worse than thinking about Aunt Rose's visit. I changed gear completely and tried looking at what my eyes could actually see. My bookshelf carefully lined with track ribbons and school awards. Mama's old globe sitting on my desk, tilted like the actual earth. It was even raised a little higher where the mountains were so you could trace the ridges with your fingers. My eyes passed over my CDs, neatly stacked, before eventually landing above my desk on the framed magazine cover with Flojo and Jackie Joyner-Kersee. 6 Olympic medals between them. Flojo wasn't running in this year's games, but it didn't matter. She was already a first-rate champion, a legend, a magic maker. I tried picturing myself standing right beside her, holding up a gold medal of my own, but the image fizzled away too soon. Time was creeping by and sleep still wasn't coming easy, so I hiked the covers up high over my head like I'd done a million times before and tried listening for the one thing that might actually make me feel better. The one thing I could hear crystal clear. The one thing that always sounded right. The sound of the 4 of us winning. It helped that I'd been repeating the words in my mind for a whole year. Alexis Evans shoots out of the block in the lead. There is nothing to stand in her way. A perfect pass to Kamaria Kessie, who doesn't give an inch and widens the gap. Luz Vidal kicks up dust as she takes the curve, and Danica Davenport brings it all the way home. She raises her arms as she crosses the finish line. The River Park Middle School's 4x100 relay team wins first place, and it only gets better. They broke their own record and the state record. The girls fall to the ground. The crowd stomps their feet. The metal bleachers go boom, boom, boom.
There we go. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Nansu. Wonderful stuff. It's really evocative. You can sort of see it, feel it all, which is wonderful. We've got a couple of questions for you, Nansu. Here we go. So you sort of mentioned this, some of this already, but just to sort of, so Kingsway Primary School in Widnes, how much of what you write has happened to you? I think Tom sort of mentioned a couple of bits about from his life and stuff. But you know, and you mentioned the relay. But any other stuff in there that kind of things like that happened, and you put it in the book?
So I think usually the starting point is maybe just a fragment or a kernel, and then I build the story around the kernel. So I ran track, but that is largely the only similarity I would say between my path and Cam's path in the book. So there's usually a trace of me, even in the other characters, like I think Tom was saying, there are traces of me in the other characters also, but it's usually just a hint, and then I build the story around that.
That's an interesting thing you just said there, because I don't know what show it was on. It was a show a while ago, and someone said that they use for their characters. I don't know if any of the other authors do this. We should ask them when I get them all on in a minute. But the characters are actually all different elements of themselves that they then explore. So if you felt like if it was a baddie, and say sometimes you felt the feeling of jealousy, then you'd sort of go, well, if I took that to the extreme, what would that character be like? You know, what would I be like? You know, so I think it's kind of an interesting way to into characters, I guess, for that. Here, quick another question for you, Nansu. Here we go. So, Charborough Road Primary School, Bristol. Where do you prefer to write your stories? Is there a particular place that inspires you most? I guess within terms of where you'd like to write them. I guess is there a place at all?
Do they mean where do you prefer to write your stories? Do you mean like in when I'm actually typing?
Yeah, like you know, like
Roald
Dahl had his garden shed or whatever he did, a writing hut. And do you have a particular place you like writing them, or a particular sort of vibe? You know, when you write.
Yes, in my office, no sound, no nothing, completely by myself. Yeah. I don't like to have any music, even though I love music, and I would prefer to write in an empty house. I mean, I have 2 kids, so I don't often get an empty house, but certainly an empty office at my desk. A cup of tea, and I'm good to go. That's
good. Actually, that leads us on to a question in a moment, actually, Nansu, on everyone else. I tell you what we do is we're going to get all our other authors back on. If your book was made into a movie, which actor would play your main character? That's a tricky one. The first thing pops in your head. I think Tom laughing there. Not really sure. So, Nansu, any thoughts on that?
Yara Shahidi. Yara Shahidi. She's a little bit too old now, but Yara Shahidi. She's an American actress.
Chitra, be interesting. Chitra and Yasmin, maybe you have a different person in mind, so that'd be quite interesting.
Yeah.
Chitra,
I don't know.
Zendaya could be Yara.
Oh, interesting. Very
nice. That would work, wouldn't it? That would work. That would good. Lorraine, any thoughts? What about yours?
No, I've no idea. But I was just saying that my main character, Danny, I sent a picture of my brother when he was little to the illustrator, and that's who it's based on.
That's who it's based on. So it's the little brother. Tom, what about you? What about yourself for Cole?
Timothy Chalamet, because he's in everything now, isn't he?
You know, and he's had a hard time in June. You know, he's stopping the end of the world, but this time in Westerham instead of like on another planet. So here we go. Very, very good. Okay, here we go. So what is your kryptonite as a writer? And as we all know, and some of the children may or may not know, kryptonite was the one thing that would destroy Superman. And it may be this one thing that basically, what is the thing that basically, I can't write in this condition, I can't do this. It just completely, you know, destroys any creativity I've got. So Nansu, any thoughts on that?
When people are around, I need to be by myself.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. What about you, Chitra? Same sort of thing?
I think it's the same. I write in an empty house as well, and I can write in a coffee shop if people are not talking to me. But if it's people I know, like family around in the house, I can't because I'm listening to the conversation.
Yeah, I know. You know what I mean? It's okay in a coffee shop as long as you tell everyone to be quiet. Have some.
No, they don't need to be quiet in a coffee shop. It's like I don't want to be involved, but if people are around, then you're just going, oh, maybe they want to get something. Maybe I'm supposed to be helping, so my mind is half drawn.
Yeah, absolutely. And Yasmin, which may go into writing, but also into your work. If you're practicing or whatever, how do you do? I mean, obviously, some of what you have to do is obviously you have to be with other people. But I mean, how do you kind of get in the zone to do that? And what's your sort of kryptonite to getting you out of that?
Yeah, I need to be at home, my normal person self. Quiet, you know, no one around, same thing for sure, but I have to be out of ballet mode.
Yeah, that's interesting. That, Lorraine, what about yourself?
I don't like being told I have to write, like you have to sit down and write now. I'm like, no, I can't do that. It has to be like, I can discipline myself to write, but if somebody else tries to tell me I have to write now, then I can't do it. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm just
it's like sort of performing, isn't it? It's sort of like right, perform now. And you think, well, I can't do it now. It's sort of like a natural thing. You sort of like, it kind of flows out of you sort of subconsciously more than kind of like on a moment thing. What about you, Tom? Has you got a particular kryptonite?
Well, my next door neighbour's loft conversion.
I can hear that from here. I'm in Brighton, so yeah, that's what that would do you. I will leave it there because you can't react to that. Goodness, brilliant. Okay, here we go. So here we go. How do you celebrate when you finish writing a book? Do you have a particular celebration, or do you just sort of like, I finished that, get on with something else? What about you, Nansu? Any particular celebration or anything?
I just take a walk. Usually when I'm done, when I've typed the last word of the first draft or even of the last draft, I just take a walk. That's how I decompress. So it's less a celebration and more decompression.
I get that. I do open the door and say to everyone, "You can all come in now." And say, "Great, we've been out here for months." Just let them back in the house, which is good.
Yes,
Chitra, what about
yes.
yourself? What about yourself?
Yeah, I just take the rest of the day off.
Yeah,
I can't do anything else. I've done a big achievement by itself. Okay, then.
That must be quite nice if you finish it in the morning, then, because you get a nice full day.
I always write in the morning, so I'm done by 11 o'clock. Usually the rest of the day is free, but if I end up writing the last bit in the morning and then the rest of the day is off.
Yeah, sure. And Yasmin, what about you?
I'm kind of like, I'm so strategic. So I'm like, okay, that's done. On to the next thing. Compartmentalize, that's sorted. And then there'll be something else I can focus on. So on to the next.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a famous line somewhere. I can't remember what it was now. It comes to me later on. Lorraine, what about you? Do you any particular celebrations?
Well, not particularly dancing or anything, but I can't read like books when I'm writing. When I'm involved in my own world, I can't read other books. So when I finish writing a book, I'm like, oh, all of the books on my pile. I'm like, I pick my favorite one. I'm like, that's mine now. I'm going to just enjoy that and not have to worry about actually any of the plot.
I imagine that must be quite weird. Otherwise, you can get lots of other stuff going in your head. And you think, is that my idea or someone else's idea? Quite confusing. And Tom, what about yourself? Do you just go around to your neighbour and say, "Oi"?
Now you can start your next project.
A single tear rolls down my cheek. I brush it away, have a Coke Zero, and then
get on with that. Then go for a dance, which is quite nice. Okay. In fact, speaking of that, Coke Zero, let's just put this one up, and then we're going to go to our final bit of the close. So, favorite writing snack or drink? So Nansu, you may have answered this in our chat earlier, but do you have a favorite writing snack or drink?
Popcorn. Like I make it on the stove in a heavy pot.
Popcorn. What about you, Chitra?
No drink, but the snack is
I don't
popcorn.
snack at all. Yeah. Water.
Just water.
Yeah.
Just water.
I need to get up every hour for 10 minutes, walk around, have water, come back and sit down.
That's fair enough. Okay. We're holding up. So, Yasmin, do you have a favorite writing snack or drink? Or favorite? I mean, that's an interesting thing. I mean, what do you, if you're rehearsing, in the middle of rehearsing, I mean, how does that work in terms of like eating and stuff? Do you have to eat certain foods, or do you just? How does it work?
No, I'm eating all the time. I need a lot of energy. I've got a lot of rehearsals to do. So bananas are plentiful, flapjacks, isotonic drinks like Lucozade Sport are really good. But I'll definitely make sure I have a full belly before I'm writing. Otherwise, I'm hangry and I can't concentrate.
Oh yeah, which is a nightmare for anybody. That's an awful feeling. Lorraine, do you have a favorite writing snack or drink at all?
Yes, I feel like I need sugar for my brain to work. So I'm a big. It doesn't work otherwise. I'm a big fan of iced buns. Lorraine,
I just want to give you a congratulations. And I don't have. I mentioned on some previous shows about I have quite an affinity for cake, and part of that is to do with my grandma, who used to make these incredible cakes. She's not with us anymore, and so kind of sticks with you those things from your childhood and relatives and stuff, and seeing them make stuff. So, what about you, Tom? A favorite writing snack or drink?
Well, I feel like you're trying to get me to say beer for every one of these questions. Kryptonite. What do I do when I finish writing? Favorite writing snack? I mean, I won't say beer because obviously we're talking to primary school aged children. I recently discovered the power of bananas, having not been a fan, if I'm going to be frank about it, when I was younger. But yeah.
So you've come into bananas at a late age. I wish
no one
right, but yeah.
Well, I mean, we all have our journeys, don't we?
Now, children, you might watching. You might sort of know these things when you sort of say this or that. So we give each of the authors we go through. We've got 10 very, very quick questions, and they have to respond what they with their preference basically. So you get this or that, and they say. So it's very, very quick, sort of quick fire, just so you can find out something vaguely pointless about our guest, but also great fun. So it's also good. So here we go. So the first one is country or city. Nansu, country or city?
Country.
Chitra.
City.
Yasmin's wrong. Oh, she said what was that?
Yeah.
She said Lorraine.
Yeah.
Country.
Tom.
City.
Okay, there you go. Interesting thing. So it really got to your kid's heart. Here we go. Breakfast or dinner, Nansu?
Breakfast.
Dinner, but I love breakfast, but don't eat breakfast.
You can't have breakfast. Lorraine?
Dinner. Yeah.
Dinner. Tom?
Dinner.
Dinner. I'm a breakfast reading first. Here we go. Drama or fantasy, Nanzu? Drama or fantasy?
Drama.
Drama.
Drama. Drama.
Lorraine?
Fantasy.
Tom?
Drama, easily.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, here we go. Here we go, Nanzu. Cinderella or Snow White? Nanzu.
Cinderella? I don't know Cinderella.
Chitra?
Oh, neither, but if I have to go with one, probably Snow White.
Snow White. Lorraine?
I'm going Snow White too.
Snow White all the way, but Snow White. Tom?
All the way.
Cinderella.
Cinderella, fantastic. Here we go. We've got a few more. Here we go. We do this really, really quickly. So I won't even call your name. We're just going to go. When one's spoken, we go to the next, the next, the next. Ready? Here's the question. Ready? Hot or cold? Nanzu.
Hot. Hot.
Hot.
Hot.
Really? Fantastic. Okay. Tea or coffee? Nanzu.
Tea. Tea.
Coffee.
Neither.
Coffee.
Coffee. Fantastic. Here we go. Batman or Superman? Batman or
Superman.
Nanzu.
Superman.
Superman.
Batman.
Oh, really? Oh, that's a bit of a, that's quite a big one. Okay.
Isn't it? A bit
Couple
dark.
more. Okay. Ice cream or cake? Ice cream or cake, Nanzu?
Cake.
Cake.
Ice cream.
Ice cream.
Oh, look at that. It's evenly balanced. Okay, one more of these. A beautiful one to end with. Sunrise or sunset, Nanzu?
Sunrise.
Sunrise.
Sunset.
Sunset.
Look at that.
I've never been awake to see a sunrise. I mean,
Oh, it's my neighbour. It's just, I never sleep.
See, that's the thing. I'm awake at 4 every day, so sunrise.
Me too. I wake up at 4.
Study faces the east.
Oh, Yasmin is back with us. I'm going to bring Yasmin quick into it. Just popped up on screen again. Yasmin, here we go. We're back with us. I don't know if you saw any of those quite amusing answers there to everybody. That's quite amusing. I would just ask you quickly the last question, Yasmin, because here we get the thing: sunrise or sunset?
Oh, I love a sunset.
Sunset.
Definitely
there we go. I think sunset gets it. Listen, what a pleasure to have you all on today, and I wish you all the best luck in the world with your lovely books. Nanzu, thank you very much. Chitra, Tom, Lorraine, Yasmin, and good luck with everything. And enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of the year. I'm sure we'll meet again at some point. Give a wave to everybody. Big goodbye. Wave to each other. Thank you to all my guests. Weren't they a fabulous bunch? Give everyone a big round of applause. And it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from me. Thanks for joining me. Goodbye. Goodbye.